Hey everybody, this is So Many Sequels. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm David.
We are ready to talk about our movie of the week, Mad Max Fury Road, directed by George Miller, starring Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron. If you check out Letterboxd's description of this movie, it is an apocalyptic story set in the furthest reaches of our planet in a stark desert landscape where humanity is broken and most everyone is crazed, fighting for the necessities of life. Within this world exist two rebels on the run who just might be able to restore order. This is a 2015 entry in the Mad Max franchise, which was, I believe, bigger throughout the 80s and into the 90s. And then George Miller brings it back in 2015 with Fury Road, starring Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron. We're about to get a prequel to this movie called Furiosa that we will be talking about soon. So again, be sure you subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. But let's talk a little bit about how Fury Road was handled when it came out. David, what was this movie's box office life like?
Well, it's very interesting. So yeah, big gap between Mad Max Fury Road, and I think the previous one was Beyond Thunderdome. So it debuted the weekend of May 15th, 2015, to the number 2 spot. This is kind of fun. A lot of times when we talk about movies, they're usually the number 1 movie the weekend they came out. But Mad Max Fury Road was number 2 that weekend with $45.4 million, which is a pretty good second place finish, all in all. The number 1 movie that weekend, which is a movie we've reviewed, Pitch Perfect 2, was the number 1 movie at the box office the weekend that Fury Road came out. That brought in $69.2 million. Nice. And you can listen to our review of Pitch Perfect 2, as well as the entire Pitch Perfect franchise. We actually have reviewed the top 3 movies of this weekend, because at number 3 you had Avengers Age of Ultron, which brought in $38 million in its third week. At number 4, Hot Pursuit. And at number 5, Furious 7. Which is kind of hard, kind of crazy to think about the fact that we were on Furious 7 by 2015. There you go. So Mad Max would go on to make 154.2 in the United States, 226 million overseas, for a worldwide total of $380 million. Pretty firmly making back its estimated budget, which was between. It's still unsure, from what I can tell, is somewhere between $155 and $180 million. But definitely seemed to make the money back. For the year of 2015, Mad Max would actually finish as the number 21 movie of the year, just behind San Andreas and just ahead of Daddy's Home. The number 1 movie 2015 was Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, as you might remember. We've also reviewed that movie, which brought in $936 million in the United States.
It was a different time.
Different time. It was huge. Jurassic World was the number 2 movie of the year. Avengers Age of Ultron, number 3. Inside Out, which we may be reviewing in the near future, was number 4. And number 5 was, again, Furious 7. I talked about opens earlier in a previous episode. And in 2015, you had, let's see here, 7 movies open. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 movies open with at least $100 million. So it was a big year. This was the era when the box office was in its sort of peak era between 2010 and 2019. So overall, a big year. Mad Max, also one more detail, to date, the highest performing Mad Max film. We'll see if that holds. But there is plans for more Mad Max. We will be looking at Furiosa soon, and I know there's another sequel planned along the way. So I would say popular movie. A lot of people liked it. It wasn't necessarily the biggest movie of 2015, but it was in the top. It was in the top 25.
A quick poll around the room: who had seen this when it came out, and had anyone seen this for the first time this time?
This was my first time.
Oh, okay. I saw it when it came out, but probably my first time since then.
Yeah, okay. And this was David's first time. Okay. I saw it when it came out too. I haven't seen it in a while, but I watched it a couple more times after that. I really liked it when it came out. I really liked it again this time. It's a movie that's pure adrenaline, and I think that that's the right way to make this movie. I don't know how else to make a Mad Max movie today. It's interesting how they reboot a trilogy, or not a trilogy, but a series that had been done so many years ago, with a new actor, Tom Hardy, as Max. This was in the past played by Mel Gibson. He obviously is way older now, and this movie is set in the same kind of time era, I think. So this was a wild movie, and I really had fun with it. Garrett, what was your reaction from watching it upon almost 10 years later?
I opened up in that first scene, and the first thing I said is this movie is so claustrophobic, despite the fact that it takes place in such a desert, and the way that it's shot is so spastic and crazy and everything. But it reminds, again, David, you have mentioned my love of the movie Crank with Jason Statham from the early 2000s, and this is what Crank wants to be. This is high octane energy, impressive stunts. Somehow it's not stupid, and it could be. It's just it's this post-apocalyptic world that's dystopian and beautiful and wild, and the story breathes as it kind of goes on. You start off this very tight and don't have any idea what's going on. It's just chaos, and there's not a lot of dialogue. It's just action. And then it's mostly just action, but the story grows and you learn throughout the characters. And I just really like the way that they suck you in so fast and just accelerate it from there. There are a few parts that kind of slow down, but overall this movie is green from the start and just going.
Yeah, and so that brings us to David, the lone first-time viewer in the room today. What did you think of it? What did you think, coming into it? What were you expecting?
Well, it was really good. And what I was expecting was one of the greatest movies of all time, because that's what I've been told many, many times, like through various, because I've seen reviews of it. I've seen people talking. I watched a video essay about it at one point, because there was a video about how writers can look at Fury Road, right? And so, that person doing that video essay was like, it's one of the greatest movies of all time. So I was kind of like, my hype level was very high, and this has happened sometimes with films that you sort of miss in the moment. And I do think that it was very good. I'm not sure if I'm getting the greatest of all time out of it, but I really enjoyed myself. But I do think, I was fortunate I didn't have this when we did The Shining. The Shining was a movie that has all these references, and it's got so much cultural impact that I was afraid that watching it was gonna not, I wasn't gonna be impressed. But that didn't happen there. Here, I don't know. It was good. I've seen it referenced a lot. It's been talked about and referenced and stuff like that. So I don't know if it hit the levels that would have hit if I saw this for the first time in 2015. Maybe some of it is, I don't really know what's going on in the Mad Max universe. I know that they don't have oil and they don't have gas or something like that. That's the part of the big thing, but so maybe a lack of knowledge. But I have to say, for me, the whole movie, once it became clear that this movie is kind of more about Furiosa than it is Mad Max, the entire thing shifted, and all of a sudden it became I was like, okay, now I'm in on this, because I was having a hard time with Max as a character, and then I was like, oh, you know what? Furiosa is the person to watch here. So that was kind of what I came out with it, is this is a great movie. I can see why Furiosa as a character, people attached to her, and why that character's getting their own movie coming out soon.
Yeah, just to remind folks of the critical acclaim that Mad Max Fury Road received, it was nominated at the 88th Academy Awards for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Cinematography, and Best Visual Effects, and went on to win Best Film Editing, Best Production Design, Costume Design, Makeup and Hairstyling, Sound Mixing, and Sound Editing. It won more awards than any other at the ceremony that year, and set a record for Australian films. It was also ranked in the top 20 on the New York Times' best movies of the 21st century and the BBC's best movies of the 21st century. So you are right that a lot of people are considering this among the best movies of all time, which is a very high bar to set and a very subjective one. Everybody's list includes various different things, so that's always hard to really judge, especially as time goes by. But I will say, nearly 10 years later, I do think it holds up for me in terms of it didn't feel any less impressive than it did back then. In fact, I looked back on it thinking, wow, this movie looks visually very good. One of my favorite moments in the movie is when they just drive into the sandstorm and just chaos ensues. And it looks like very well made, which was gnarly. It was just a gnarly movie. But yeah, let's talk about how it is mostly about Furiosa, who is one of the rebels discussed in that letterbox description. She and Max would be the other rebel, kind of meet up in this film and team up in a way to take on Immortan Joe, who is some kind of ruler of this area of a very dystopian Earth.
Australia, to be specific.
Right. To be specific. So, one thing I actually want to get your guys' opinion on is that there's very little dialogue in this movie, kind of famously. George Miller has said that he thinks that dialogue is a waste of time in movies. You'd have to look into more of what he said there to kind of get his gist of that, but he believes in like telling the movie through his action sequences and whatnot. How did you guys feel about that? Did you guys notice how little actual dialogue there was throughout? Especially like Tom Hardy has, I want to say something around 60 something lines in the whole film.
Yeah, I had no issue with it. It was noticeable. It was a thing that I brought up. But at the same time, this movie and this genre, action specifically, can be led to exactly what he's saying. You don't need a lot of dialogue if you set up an action movie correctly. And if you even go back to think about it, I mean, most movies were built around silence. So he has a point. I do think that dialogue is great and wonderful. But if you have a way of telling a story as a director that connects with a person that involves a ton of dialogue or less dialogue and more action scenes, then great. Tell your story the way that you can tell your story. I don't think it's fair to say one way as a director that one way is better than another. It depends on your execution. And this is truly executed well. You don't need to know about the characters in depth. You just kind of need to know what's going around. They're in a dystopian world. You're trying to piece things together. And it blooms over time. You start off not knowing, and you start off just sucked in because the action is so good and so, like, again, spastic is the word that I would go back to describe how this is. And so I don't need a lot of dialogue because my sensory overload is already going on. And if you hit me with something else that I have to pay attention to, that's going to be like Uncut Gems, which is great, but in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's built around the cars and the world and the chasing. And they tell the chasing, or they do have dialogue sometimes during the chases. So I just think it's a well-balanced movie from someone who had a really good vision and executed it well. And round of applause for George Miller for that.
Yeah, for me, like I said, George Miller has said that he would prefer dialogue's not that important to him. And I think you have to. It works for him because he understands his film. He understands his film more than anybody else, right? There are certain directors that going like really light on dialogue probably not going to work, and there are some that can pull it off. And George Miller is one of the guys who can pull it off. He knows this world. He knows exactly what he can do, and he knows how to communicate exactly what he wants to communicate without saying a lot. And that's not to say that this movie's like no one ever speaks in this film, because like you said, Garrett, there's a lot of there are things that are said, but so much more is just communicated through what the characters are doing and how they respond, how they react. And so, like, yeah, Tom Hardy doesn't have a lot of lines. Furiosa doesn't have a lot of lines. I think it kind of came up because someone somewhere clocked how many lines Anya Taylor-Joy is going to have in Furiosa, and it was like very, very little. And then people started pointing out, well, Tom Hardy doesn't have a lot of lines either. But me, I love dialogue. Dialogue is one of my favorite things in movies, but when you can, like you said, balance out your conversations and balance out those kind of moments, it amplifies the times you do choose to use it. Because, like, I think one of the most memed things about this movie are the couple, like some of the handful of lines, like what is his name? Joe, Immortan Joe yelling mediocre, and there's the very famous gif of Tom Hardy going, that's bait, and so lines can become iconic because it's one of the few things that are said. So I don't know. I think that this movie is pretty much, if you were teaching a class, this would be the one you would show to young aspiring filmmakers when you want to illustrate the idea of show don't tell, because you don't get a lot of like setup. It's possible you could watch this whole movie and not even realize it's in Australia. I only know that because I looked up where is Mad Max set, and so like the movie is not going to hold your hand and tell you every little thing along the way. But the lines they do have, like when Furiosa meets up with the mini mothers in the sort of the midpoint of the movie, you get a lot of great information there that kind of helps you out. Anyway, yeah, but I do think it's interesting. I think it's interesting, like him, Denise Villeneuve, who does Dune. They're very like anti-dialogue guys, and I just find that to be really interesting.
It certainly works for me in their movies, at least it has so far, because I agree with Garrett that this one works for me with the little dialogue. There's so much storytelling in what is being shown that I love there, and then so much of it kind of doesn't matter. Like, yeah, it's interesting to know it's set in Australia, but it doesn't ultimately matter. It's just kind of one of those things that helps out, and I like that. It can give something to both viewers who maybe know a lot of the lore and those who want to see a much more accessible action movie, or whatever you want to call this kind of movie. I think it's a little more than action. I think there's sci-fi involved. But
yeah,
I like it. It's pretty good. I already kind of talked about one of my favorite scenes, which is one of the first car chases in the movie where Max is being used as a blood bag for this sickly thing, man. Nux, I believe his name is. Is that right?
Yeah. Nux, yeah.
So he's strapped to the hood of the car and also strapped to Nux's arm via an IV. And he's just being driven like crazy through a sandstorm with like literal lightning, like an actual sandstorm. And we're watching cars get torn up. We're watching people get torn apart. Wild. What are some of your guys' favorite scenes in this movie?
I like the polecats. It was like Cirque du Soleil of Mad Max Fury Road. Like, it was wild to see those people on those long poles just going up and down. And we've been on a kick lately of movies with practical stunts. And let me tell you what, this movie, as far as the practical stunts and the things that they do, I think it really, I don't know, man, it outshines some of the ones that I have seen a lot. And I think that just, again, this movie holds up over time for me. You see the practical stunts, and all of the car chases that they do are just so impressive. But for me, the polecats and watching them do that was really freaking cool. What about you, David?
No, 100%. So, like, I mean, you take, like, all the most complicated stunts and fight sequences you could have, but then you add cars, Like, it just, like, amplifies how dangerous some of this stuff probably was and how safe they had to be with it. We're coming off of, just a few weeks ago, watching The Fall Guy, which was dedicated to stunt workers and to stunt drivers and things like that. And this is kind of a great follow-up for us to do, because this is a movie that really highlights how incredible stunt workers can be. And I'm trying to think of like specifically, there was a point in the movie where Max falls off the car, and Furiosa grabs him by the foot, and she's having to hold him up while he's dangling there, and then she's getting attacked from behind, but she's still holding on. And the how that communicates the dedication they both have in this moment to trying to get through this is pretty cool. There's a specific one. So actually, just after the big thing that we talked about, going through the sandstorm and him being strapped to the hood of the car, we get this great introduction of Max and Furiosa that I really liked, where Max is trying to get out of there, but he's chained to Nicholas Hoult. He's chained to Nux, and he comes upon the wives and Furiosa, and he's then they're at this kind of weird impasse because they think, he's trying to capture them. He's like, I want nothing to do with them. I just need to get unattached from this guy, steal this car, and get out of here. And then you've got Nux, who's in the middle of, he is trying to capture them, and he thinks that, Matt, so that to me was a really interesting scene because, again, they told a story through kind of the fight and trying, these objects that they're trying to get, him holding, the wives hostage and stuff like that. So the stuff that's even not in the cars is also really impressive because those were fun fight sequences as well for me.
Yeah, lots of great action sequences in this. And it's really interesting to talk about the performances specifically because of how little dialogue there is. But there is a lot said in what is unsaid with Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy. They're pretty good actors, I hear. People seem to like them. We've talked about them a lot already. Was there any other notes you guys had on their performances in this?
I do find it interesting that we're going to go into a Furiosa movie because, David, as you mentioned, Furiosa is the star of this movie. I mean, her story and what they are doing is so much more interesting than, honestly, Mad Max as a character in this movie. He's a good character, but he is not where your energy and brain should be focused on because he's side character. And so I'm very interested to see how they're going to build this character after a movie that kind of already really established her. I think that's going to be really interesting. But Charlize Theron, and honestly, all of the wives and then the mothers that they would eventually come up to, that final scene when they are all, they've all been through so much and everything that they've had has basically just been ruined. And this is their chance to stand their ground when they're headed back to the Citadel and they're facing them all kind of head on. And they have that big fight with all of the mothers and all of the wives just standing up to them. It's a really awesome scene, and it's well crafted, and every piece of it just comes together so well. And I mean, I don't know, it's just, again, such good storytelling because you don't get a lot of dialogue, but you still feel for these moments, and you are just on the edge of your seat as they are trying to make this stand, and it's great.
I'm gonna do twofold thing here. One, Tom Hardy, he's very serviceable in this, but honestly, I kind of feel like you could have just gotten any fairly prominent male star and he could have done just as good a job with this. Max stands out as a character, but I don't know if Tom Hardy did anything overly special in this for me. That might be controversial, I don't know. But I'm going to get into a different level of controversy, which is that with the way the internet is and the way a certain subsection of internet culture is, I'm kind of shocked that I don't remember there being more backlash to this movie when you consider that it does kind of put Furiosa, this female character, kind of more in a prominent space, and it's really about these mothers and these wives, and their story is the main story, and Max is just kind of a participant in their story. That I am kind of surprised that there wasn't more backlash to that when, I don't know what the other Mad Max movies are like. Maybe they are also that, but I just kind of feel like there's probably a demographic that's going to be, that would be really angry about a woman taking center stage here.
I will ease your worries and let you know that there was, in fact, a backlash to the women in this movie. It did not take much Googling to find plenty of articles from 2015. That the internet did not fail and made sure to let us know they did not like the lady movie.
Interesting. Okay, because all I've ever heard was that people loved Furiosa in this, and that people loved, and that obviously she's getting her own movie, so people really, really liked her.
CNN.
So, okay,
May 15th, 2015. Men's rights activists boycott Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh my gosh.
Men's rights activists. Give me a break.
Thank you for coming through, Internet.
We can talk a little bit about some of the side characters real quick, because Nicholas Hoult, I thought he delivered on a performance. I mean, for me, he was one of the characters that got like one of the biggest arcs as far as you can have in this. From where he started and his creepiness, I guess, to start out. And then, the way that he really transforms, and who knows, maybe it's a desperation kind of a thing. There's an argument to be made. I feel like that character's just trying to survive in some way, shape, or form, but he seems to have a genuine turn, and that was really a fun moment to see, because you didn't really get that kind of a storytelling arc for anyone else.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's an interesting character for that reason. He does have a bit of an arc that you wouldn't expect from a seemingly bad guy in the beginning, at least. Turns out he's a little complex.
Yeah. So much depth.
Yeah.
So much deep.
He's always down to do something weird. He's up there with Paul Dano, in terms of like every time he shows up in a movie, I know he's going to do a good job. So that's he was wild in this. He also has a memed line of the whole what a great day, or what a terrific
what a
day,
lovely
like
day.
What a lovely day. That's it.
Yeah.
I also want to just shout out the bad guy, Immortan Joe, played by Hugh Keys-Byrne, who was in the original Mad Max as a character named Toe Cutter, and George brought him back.
Toe Cutter.
100 years later to be the main bad guy in this one.
Interesting name.
That's crazy.
He's
David,
got
you and I always talk about
design. Yeah.
You and I always talk about wrestlers. There's Nathan Jones.
Yes.
Rictus Erectus.
Oh man.
Some of them. Yes.
Can we talk about this?
Sure.
This
please.
is one of the main downfalls of not having a lot of dialogue. The names of the characters in this movie
Awful.
are freaking insane, and we don't get to hear almost any of them. They never say Rictus Erectus at any point in this movie.
No, they just say Rictus. They never say his whole name. And then you got Zoe Kravitz out there as Toast the Knowing, which is just what? My favorite is Courtney Eaton's Cheeto the Fragile, though. I mean, again, I have no idea. They're just in there for not very long, but that is a great name.
Oh, and there's more and more. There's like a guy his character name is like the Bullet Farmer. There's the Doof Warrior. That's the dude playing the guitar, hanging by the strings. He's the Doof Warrior.
My favorite.
Yes.
There's the Organic Mechanic. That's a great name.
That rolling guitar. There's an old. I don't play a ton of video games, but there was an old Jack Black video game where he is the main guy, and he's like a roadie, and he gets transported back in time, and he's got to build all of these things, and he beats people by playing guitar. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a great game, and that every time I see that like rolling thing, it makes me think of that video game.
Definitely. What is the name of that game? I know it too. But yeah, Nathan Jones, protege of The Undertaker. At one point in time. He was also, so he's appeared in a couple other things. He was in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He played Mr. Hyde. He was in something else, and I can't think of what it was. But when I saw him, I was like, I think that's Nathan Jones. There we go. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well. So. How does going through this movie make you guys feel about Furiosa coming out? Because that's why we're doing this. We're looking at this movie because Furiosa is coming out, and this was a movie that was on our most anticipated lists, and I think at this point in time, one of my predictions for the way the outlook of the year was that some of these epics are going to be the ones that drive people. Dune did a good job of getting people to the theater. Will this one be the summer start? Like, will this start the summer season, and will it last long enough to make it a good, feasible summer season?
Who knows?
I'm not sure.
Some days I think it could, and they would say it didn't.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell.
It could open to a lot of money, and they'd still say disappointment. I think this has a good shot. I mean, I think it'll do as well as Mad Max did in 2015, which it probably needs to do slightly better, considering like inflation and stuff. But
Yeah.
I could see it opening, 50 to 60 million maybe. Like if the excitement is really here, which I hope it is. This one's got this prequel's got Chris Hemsworth in it. It is, the first one generated so much attention that maybe there's going to be that. People like Anya Taylor-Joy a lot. So I'm hopeful that it does well, and I'm hopeful that I'm hopeful the story is good. This one was a really good movie. So I'm hopeful that, they keep the juice rolling on that. I'm more excited to see it now than I was before seeing Fury Road.
What about you,
Makes
Josh?
sense. I'm
You
very
looking forward to Furiosa?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I was already since I had seen this. I'm excited to see Anya Taylor-Joy in the role. This is a prequel, so we're getting a younger Furiosa. So Anya Taylor-Joy has been cast in the role. I am looking forward to seeing how she does with it. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of story we get from it. I really don't know much about it because I have tried not to really look at outside anything but trailers. So I'm excited, and this got me. It got me hyped because it's a different kind of story, right? Because I know it's not a sequel where I'm going to find out what happens next. It's more like I'm going to find out what happens before. So I'm still excited to see it, but it is going to be interesting that it's a prequel. So I'm excited anyway.
And we being a sequels based podcast, we don't really we haven't talked about the pros and cons of a prequel before. I feel like this is a franchise where a prequel you have a better chance of getting away with it.
Probably.
Because we don't know anything about Furiosa's story, and we know what's going to happen to her 19 years later. But at the same time, there's like a whole wealth of things that could have happened, in the prior times, because we don't get any real information other than she was stolen 7,000 days ago, which I looked up as about like 19 years or 9 years or something like that. So I think it could be really interesting. We'll have to see how they stick the landing, but I'm down for it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Get into our final ratings and thoughts on this movie. I've already said it so much. I really like this. I liked it 10 years later. I'm excited for what's next in the Mad Max story, and I'm excited that George Miller is the one creating these stories. So I'm going to give this a 4.5 stars.
I'm right there with you, Josh. Also going to give it 4.5 stars. I really dug this. Even though it may not have met the insurmountable hype that was laid upon it, I still think this is about as good as you can hope for. Especially when I hadn't seen the other ones. I didn't know what to expect. So really, really enjoyed this, and really looking forward to Furiosa.
Yeah, I won't waste time. Ditto to everything. 4.5.
Sweet. All right. 4.5 stars across the board here on So Many Sequels for Mad Max Fury Road. All right, gang, it's time to play the letterbox game. We are going to each take a crack at guessing what the average score of Mad Max Fury Road is on our favorite social media app for movie fans, Letterboxd, which you can follow all of us on there, including the show, and we would love to follow you back. So go check us out there. I'm going to read some of the more popular reviews from the community, and then we're going to take a guess. Like I said, I'm going to go first because I am doing the worst, right? That's what that means. I'm in last place in the overall standing, so I'm going to guess first. But like I said, let's go through some of these popular reviews here. First, from Adam Bolt, we got 4.5 stars, or as we Australians call it, Tuesday. Tuesday. Driving fast in the dystopian, the Great Outback. 3.5 stars, or 4.5 stars. This is a great film to watch right before your driving test. Right. 5 stars. Few movies in history have ever whipped quite this hard. 5 stars.
Ghost ride the whip, man.
I know. 5 stars. Can we talk about the guy who just keeps playing his guitar? Everything around him is blowing up, but he only cares about his music. My new life goal is to become as optimistic as he is. And then finally, 5 stars. Me driving 1 mile per hour above the speed limit. I'm gonna die historic on the Fury Road. So, a lot of hype for Fury Road in those reviews. I am gonna have to lean high and set the stage here, I guess. I'm gonna pick a 4.3.
Ooh.
I'm going brave, risky. It could be riskier.
Garrett, would you like to go next, or would you like to go last? Because we're tied.
Oh, we're tied. Oh, well, here's the tiebreaker. Who has more direct hits? That should be the person who goes next, or who goes last, I guess.
Well, I have more direct hits because every time I've won this year, it's been a direct hit.
Fair enough. Well, then I guess I'll go. Unless you want to go, you technically have the tiebreaker.
No. You go. You go ahead. You go ahead.
I would also err on the side of high. We said 4.5s ourselves, and that usually doesn't happen. We're not consistently that high. I think that I'm gonna go, with 4.4. Why not? I'll up it. 4.4. I ain't scared.
So 4.3, 4.4. It's not a 4.5.
That seems
That's reserved for very, very special movies.
I just got some praise. I didn't hear anything below 4.5, man.
You're right.
I mean, I understand that it was just a few filtered, but like here.
Yeah, those are the top reviews.
Not necessarily the best, just the most popular.
Well, yes. I got no choice, but I'll go 4.2. You know, and anything below 4.2, I got covered here.
Okay, let's see what we got here. We did our usual extremely boring right next to each other lineup that we like to do.
But
here.
it was more exciting because it's on the high side, and that's more.
It's
fun.
true. It is on the higher side than we usually do.
It could literally be any one of the three scores we did.
And it is one of the three scores we just said. And it is a 4.2. So this one is going to go to David.
Mr. David.
Another one. Man.
Yeah, this is getting really, really deeply unfortunate for us.
Yeah, I'm
only two back. You're struggling.
I'm the Kendrick Lamar. You guys are the Drake. I'm just winning this thing.
I'm J. Cole. Yo, I'm out. Bye.
Yeah.
That's okay. He took the easy way to that.
That brings me up to 10 for the year. It's true. Well, I got a direct hit though.
All right, the easy way. It's like hitting the daily double. You didn't mean to. It just happened.
Well, that brings me up to 10. Garrett's at 8, and Josh is behind at 5. Josh hasn't had a win since Swiss Army Man.
True. The farting corpse.
24 years ago.
24 years ago. Yep. All right, well, that is the show, I think. Let's just wrap it up there. We've got more great stuff coming up for you guys this month, an exciting summer ahead. So be sure that you are following us everywhere. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or in your favorite podcasting app to keep up with new episodes, new reviews. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Facebook. Stay in touch with us there. Let us know what you think of the show, the movies we're watching. If you have any ideas for movies to review, we would love to hear from you. And then finally, you can go to SoManySequels.com for all those links and a catalog of all of our past podcast episodes. We will see you all very soon. Bye.